Lena stood at the exit ramp of the interstellar transport vessel, her six-fingered hands smoothing down the formal education robes that marked her as a Taven elite scholar. The bluish tint of her translucent skin darkened with anxiety as she faced her first glimpse of Earth. The Taven Imperium had maintained distant diplomatic relations with Earth for nearly 50 Earth years, but this marked the first student exchange program between the species. As the top graduate of the Imperial Science Academy, Lena had been selected to represent her people at a human institution called Seoul National University. "Remember your training," she whispered to herself, activating her atmospheric adjustment collar. The device hummed quietly, filtering Earth's oxygen-rich air to match the composition her lungs required. A small delegation waited at the bottom of the ramp. Lena recognized Professor Kim from their preliminary video communications, a human male with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes behind clear vision-enhancing devices, humans called glasses. "Welcome to Earth, Scholar Lena," Professor Kim said with a formal bow that Lena appreciated. At least they had researched proper Taven greeting protocols. "The honor is mine," Lena responded, her translation device converting her harmonic speech patterns into Korean. "I bring the wisdom of the Imperium and seek the knowledge of Earth." The small crowd of humans watching from behind a security barrier whispered excitedly. Several held up recording devices. Lena maintained perfect posture. She was, after all, representing 15 generations of carefully cultivated Taven superiority in academic discipline. "Your host family is waiting to meet you," Professor Kim said, guiding her toward the terminal. "The Hans have prepared extensively for your arrival." Inside the terminal building, Lena experienced her first moment of sensory overload. Humans moved in unpredictable patterns, their emotional states broadcasting wildly through their facial expressions and body language. The Taven Imperium valued control above all else, emotional, intellectual, and physical. This chaotic human energy was precisely what the Imperial Council warned about. The Han family stood near a decorative water feature. They included 2 adult humans and 2 younger ones. All wore the formal attire that had been recommended in the cultural exchange guidelines. "Scholar Lena, may I present Mr. and Mrs. Han, and their children Junho and Mina," Professor Kim introduced them. Lena performed the formal greeting bow, holding her hands in the traditional scholarly position. "I am honored by your hospitality." Mrs. Han stepped forward with a warm smile. "We're so excited to have you stay with us. We've prepared a room according to the specifications provided by your embassy." The younger male, Kyuno, appeared to be approximately Lena's age equivalent. "I'm a physics student at SNU. I'll be your campus guide," he said with a slight awkwardness that Lena found strangely reassuring. The younger female, Mina, stared openly at Lena's translucent skin and the subtle bioluminescent patterns that revealed her emotional state to any Taven observer. "Your skin is beautiful. Can you really change colors with your emotions?" "Mina." Mrs. Han whispered sharply. "It's a valid inquiry," Lena responded carefully. "Taven physiology includes chromatophores similar to those found in some Earth-sea creatures. They serve as non-verbal communication among my people." The drive to the Han family home provided Lena with her first extended view of Earth landscapes. Seoul's architecture fascinated her. Unlike the perfectly symmetrical designs of Taven cities, human buildings displayed a bewildering variety of styles and purposes. "Our apartment is small by your standards," Mr. Han explained as they entered a residential tower, "but we've modified the guest room to match Taven environmental preferences." The apartment was indeed compact compared to Taven living quarters, but Lena found the efficiency logical. The guest room had been transformed with remarkable attention to detail, the lighting adjusted to the purple-tinged spectrum preferred by Taven eyes, and a sleep platform designed to accommodate her different spinal structure. "The environmental controls can be adjusted here." Mrs. Han demonstrated a panel near the sleeping platform. "And we've stocked appropriate food options in a separate preparation area." Lena felt an unexpected sensation, gratitude that went beyond formal appreciation. "Your thoughtfulness honors the spirit of scientific exchange," she said, using a traditional Tavan expression of thanks. That evening, the family gathered for a meal. The Hans ate their human food while Lena consumed nutrient discs from her supplies. Cultural guidelines prohibited sharing food during initial contact phases. "So what made you want to study on Earth?" Minna asked, watching curiously as Lena methodically consumed a precisely measured portion. "Want implies emotional desire," Lena corrected gently. "I was selected based on aptitude scores and biological compatibility with Earth's environment." Junho laughed softly. "That sounds like when I applied to the university physics program." Lena tilted her head. "You were also selected through objective measurement." "Not exactly," Junho replied. "I meant I didn't have much choice either. My test scores determined my future too." This unexpected commonality intrigued Lena. Perhaps humans and Tavans shared more than the Imperium acknowledged. After the meal, Junho showed Lena the study area he had set up for her, complete with Earth reference materials and access to the university's knowledge databases. "Classes start in 3 days," he explained. "That should give you time to adjust to our time cycle and orientation." "Efficient planning," Lena approved. "I must maintain optimal function to properly represent the Imperium." Later that night, alone in her room, Lena recorded her first observations in her official report datavat. "Humans appear more methodical than Imperial briefings suggested. The host family has made logical accommodations for biological differences. Initial hypothesis: human chaotic tendencies may be exaggerated in Imperium cultural warnings." She hesitated, then added, "The younger human, Junho, displays thought patterns that suggest potential compatibility with Tavan analytical methods. We'll observe further." As Earth's unfamiliar night sounds filtered through the dwelling, Lena experienced an unauthorized emotional response. Excitement. The Imperium valued controlled curiosity, but this feeling was different. A desire to discover not just facts about humans, but understanding. Her skin flickered briefly with patterns that would have scandalized her instructors back home. The blue-green swirls of intellectual rebellion. For the first time in her perfectly structured life, Lena wondered if there might be value in the human approach to knowledge. Messy, unpredictable, but perhaps containing insights Tavan rigid methodology could miss. She would, of course, never include such speculations in her official reports. 3 weeks into her Earth study program, Lena's organized schedule had become a source of quiet pride. Each day followed a perfect pattern: morning preparation rituals, classes, research time, and evening study sessions. Her reports back to the Tavan Imperium were filled with detailed observations about human learning methods, though she carefully edited out the more chaotic elements that might concern the Educational Council. Today, however, her routine faced disruption. Professor Doe had assigned a group project in comparative xenobiology, requiring Lena to work with 3 human students on analyzing evolutionary parallels between Earth and Tavan ecosystems. "The library study room is reserved for us at 8 tonight," Junho reminded her as they walked across campus. "The others will meet us there." Lena nodded, her skin displaying faint yellow patterns of mild stress. Group assignments are inefficient. Individual work produces more consistent results. Junho smiled. "Maybe for Tavans. Humans sometimes think better when we bounce ideas off each other." A curious idiom, Lena noted. Physical impact does not enhance cognition. When they arrived at the library, 2 other students were waiting. Subin, a quiet female with remarkable analytical skills that Lena respected, and Do-Yun, a male whose academic approach struck Lena as disorganized but occasionally brilliant. "We should divide the project into segments," Lena suggested immediately, removing her datavat. "Each person can complete one section according to their specialization." Do-Yun shook his head. "That's not really the point of group work. We're supposed to develop ideas together." "Inefficient," Lena stated again, her skin flickering with blue stripes of frustration. 3 hours later, Lena's carefully structured approach had completely unraveled. The humans worked in a pattern she couldn't understand, interrupting each other, drawing connections between seemingly unrelated concepts, and occasionally laughing at what they called scientific jokes that made no logical sense to her. "It's getting late," Subin noted, yawning. "And we still need to finish the comparative analysis section." Do-hyun stood up. "Coffee break. My brain needs fuel." "I'll join you," Junho said, stretching. "Lena, would you like anything?" "Taven nutritional requirements are met through scheduled consumption periods," she replied automatically. Her skin now showed the dull gray of mental fatigue. When the male students returned, Do-hyun carried a tray with 4 steaming cups. "I got one for everyone." Lena stared at the dark liquid placed before her. "What is this substance?" "Coffee," Subin explained, taking her cup. "It's a beverage made from plant seeds. Humans drink it to help stay alert during study sessions." "A stimulant." Lena's skin flashed alarmed purple. The Taven Imperium strictly prohibits chemical stimulation of neural pathways. Do-hyun looked surprised. "It's just coffee. Practically every university student on Earth drinks it." "That explains much about human social development," Lena said, pushing the cup away slightly. The dark liquid emitted a complex aroma that her enhanced olfactory sense broke down into chemical components. Some seemed surprisingly similar to compounds found in Taven medicinal plants. The study session continued, but Lena found herself increasingly distracted by the coffee cups. Each human sipped periodically, and their work patterns seemed to intensify afterward. Do-hyun, who had been yawning earlier, now sketched evolutionary diagrams with renewed energy. Subin's analysis became sharper, and Junho's explanation of Earth's adaptation mechanisms grew more articulate. "Remarkable," Lena whispered, her scientific curiosity battling with cultural programming. Near midnight, the project neared completion. Subin had fallen asleep on her notebook. Do-hyun was still working, but moving more slowly. Only Junho remained fully alert, finishing the final section. "How do you maintain concentration at this hour?" Lena asked him. Junho lifted his cup with a small smile. 3 coffees since 8 o'clock. When the others had packed up their materials, Lena remained at the table, staring at her untouched coffee. It had cooled hours ago. "You're not going to try it, are you?" Junho asked, seeing her intense focus on the cup. "I'm analyzing its composition through olfactory assessment," she replied. "The caffeine molecule appears similar to a compound used in ancient Taven history." "Used for what?" "During the Knowledge Revolution, before the Imperium established control, some scholar groups consumed a stimulant called vrith, derived from a mountain plant. Historical records indicated enhanced cognitive connections temporarily." "So your people once used something like coffee?" "The practice was discontinued 5 centuries ago, when the Imperium's Educational Council determined that disciplined thought was superior to chemically stimulated insights. Vrith cultivation became forbidden." Junho considered this. "That's fascinating. So drinking coffee would be breaking a 500-year-old taboo." Lena's skin rippled with conflicted patterns. "The Imperium's prohibition is based on maintaining mental discipline and preventing emotionally driven thought processes." "But you're a scientist, right?" Junho asked. "Doesn't scientific method require first-hand observation?" After Junho left, Lena sat alone in the study room, her official datapad open to a new report entry. She typed carefully. "Investigation of prohibited human neural stimulant required for research authenticity. Sample collected for analysis and comparison to historical Taven compounds." The lie felt strange. Tavens prided themselves on absolute honesty in scientific reporting. Yet she couldn't explain her growing curiosity in terms the Imperium would accept. With a glance toward the door, Lena lifted the cold cup to her lips and took a small, cautious sip of coffee. The taste was bitter, complex, and unlike anything in her experience. She waited for some dramatic neural effect, but felt nothing immediate beyond the novel sensory input. Disappointed, she set down the cup and packed her materials. Perhaps human and Tavan neural chemistry was too different for cross-species effects. The next morning, Lena woke earlier than usual. As she prepared for class, she noticed something unusual. Her thoughts seemed to flow in new patterns. Rather than following the linear Tavan thinking methodology, her mind made unexpected connections between concepts. Looking at her xenobiology notes, she suddenly understood the relationship between Earth's diverse ecosystems and its chaotic evolutionary history in a way that hadn't been clear before. It was as if a rigid framework had become temporarily flexible. During class, Professor Doe called on her to explain a complex concept about parallel evolution. The traditional view suggests convergent development requires similar environmental pressures. Lena began in the standard Tavan academic format. Then, surprising herself, she added, "However, perhaps we should consider that chaos itself might be an evolutionary driver, creating innovation through unexpected mutations." The classroom fell silent. Professor Doe stared at her with raised eyebrows. "That's a fascinating perspective, Scholar Lena. Not one I would have expected from a Tavan viewpoint." After class, Lena hurried to a quiet spot near the campus botanical garden. Her skin displayed patterns of scientific excitement mixed with cultural alarm. She took out her personal datapad, not the official one that transmitted reports to the Imperium, and made a new entry. Coffee experiment. Day 1. Single small dose appears to modify Tavan neural pathways temporarily. Effect subtle but significant. Enhanced ability to perceive nonlinear connections. Hypothesis. The Imperium's prohibition of stimulants may limit certain types of cognitive processing beneficial to scientific discovery. She paused, then added, "Further research required." That afternoon, Lena found herself stopping outside a small cafe near the university library. Through the window, she could see students drinking from steaming cups, engaged in animated discussions, making notes, and sharing ideas. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Lena wondered what other discoveries the Imperium's strict regulations might be preventing her from making. Lena established a careful routine for her coffee research. Every third day, she would consume a small amount of the beverage and document its effects in her private datapad. She kept these records separate from her official reports to the Tavan Imperium. After 6 such experiments, she had confirmed that coffee temporarily altered her thought patterns, allowing connections that standard Tavan mental discipline prohibited. One afternoon, Lena sat in her advanced Earth Sciences class, listening to Professor Zhang explain geological formations. Suddenly, she found herself raising her hand. "Scholar Lena." Professor Zhang seemed surprised. Tavan students rarely volunteered comments. "The patterns in Earth's tectonic development appear chaotic compared to Tavan geology," Lena said. "But I wonder if this very chaos is what created Earth's remarkable biodiversity. Perhaps disorder itself has evolutionary advantages." The classroom grew quiet. Juno, sitting 2 rows away, turned to look at her with wide eyes. Professor Zhang adjusted his glasses. "That's an intriguing hypothesis. Very un-Tavan in its approach." Later, as students filed out of the classroom, Professor Zhang called Lena to his desk. "Your recent contributions in class have been quite remarkable," he said. "Your perspective is evolving beyond traditional Tavan frameworks." Lena's skin flickered with nervous patterns. "I am merely applying scientific observation." "Perhaps," Professor Zhang smiled, "but it's refreshing to see. The university is hosting the Interstellar Academic Conference next week. Would you consider presenting your cross-cultural research perspective?" Lena froze. A formal academic presentation would be recorded and potentially reviewed by the Imperium's Educational Council. "I would need to prepare thoroughly," she said carefully. "Of course. The deadline for submission is 4 days from now." That evening, Lena paced in her room at the Han residence. A presentation at the conference would be a significant honor, but her recent thinking had diverged from approved Tavan methodologies. She needed to produce exceptional work that would impress both human academics and satisfy Tavan orthodoxy. Her datapad chimed with a message from Juno. Some of us are meeting at Cloud9 Cafe tonight to study for exams. Join us." Lena hesitated. Her recent coffee experiments had been conducted in private. Public consumption would be a more serious violation of Taven protocols. "I have preparations to complete," she replied formally. 3 hours later, Lena sat surrounded by reference materials, struggling to formulate her presentation. Traditional Taven structure felt too rigid for the connection she wanted to explore, but deviating too far would raise concerns from her superiors. Her datapad chimed again. Chunho had sent an image of the study group at the cafe, with an empty seat visible at their table. The message read, "Your perspective would be valuable." Something in Lena shifted. After weeks on Earth, she was beginning to understand that isolation hindered certain types of thinking. Perhaps human collaborative methods had merit for this task. 30 minutes later, Lena pushed open the door to Cloud9 Cafe. The space was warm, filled with the rich aroma of coffee and the hum of conversation. Ambient lighting created a relaxed atmosphere unlike the harsh efficiency of Taven study halls. Chunho waved from a corner table where he sat with Subin and 2 students Lena recognized from her earth sciences class. "You came." Chunho smiled, pulling out the empty chair. "My presentation requires innovative thinking," Lena admitted, sitting down. "I hypothesized that human collaborative methods might provide useful input." Do-hyun laughed. "That's the most Taven way possible of saying you wanted company." Lena's skin flickered with embarrassment patterns. Taven educational philosophy emphasizes individual achievement. "Well, Earth educational philosophy includes caffeine," Subin said, sliding a menu toward Lena. "What would you like?" Lena examined the extensive list of coffee variations. Her previous experiments had involved only basic black coffee. "I am unfamiliar with these options," she admitted. "Try a latte," Chunho suggested. "It's milder than black coffee." When the drinks arrived, Lena observed the humans sipping casually while discussing their studies. No formal consumption rituals, no measured portions, just natural integration of the beverage into their work process. She lifted her cup and took a careful sip. The coffee was mixed with milk, creating a smoother taste than her previous experiments. Warmth spread through her body, followed by the now familiar shift in mental patterns. "So what's your presentation about?" Subin asked. "I am considering a comparative analysis of how environmental chaos influences evolutionary adaptation," Lena explained. "The Taven homeworld has stable geological conditions, while Earth experiences significant upheaval. This may explain why Earth species show more adaptability." "That sounds fascinating," Do-hyun said. "Though I bet the Taven authorities would prefer you stick to less controversial topics." Lena's skin displayed troubled patterns. "The Imperium values scientific truth, within acceptable frameworks," Chunho noted quietly. As the evening progressed, Lena found herself engaged in the most stimulating intellectual discussion she had ever experienced. The coffee seemed to remove certain inhibitory neural pathways, allowing her to consider ideas that would normally be filtered by Taven mental discipline. Combined with the dynamic exchange of human conversation, she felt her presentation taking shape in ways she hadn't anticipated. When she finally returned to the Han residence well past midnight, Lena had filled her datapad with notes and concepts that both excited and alarmed her. The presentation forming in her mind would challenge fundamental Taven beliefs about order and chaos, discipline and creativity. In her room, she activated her official communication link to Supervisor Merrick, her academic overseer on Teva. The connection established, revealing the stern face of an older Taven with pale blue skin. "Scholar Lena, this is an unscheduled communication. I apologize, Supervisor. I have been invited to present at the Interstellar Academic Conference and seek guidance on appropriate content." Supervisor Merrick's expression remained neutral, but his skin displayed patterns of suspicion. "Your research assignment is clear. Observe human educational methods while demonstrating Taven's superiority in structured thinking." "Yes, Supervisor. However, I have observed that certain human approaches have scientific merit that our literature may have overlooked. Merit. Supervisor Merrick's skin now showed dismissive patterns. Human education is disorganized and impulse-driven. Document their methods, but do not adopt them. Your presentation should reinforce Imperium principles. After the communication ended, Lena sat in silence. The coffee's effects still lingered in her system, allowing her to see the contradiction clearly. How could she conduct honest scientific observation while predetermined conclusions were required? Over the next 3 days, Lena wrote 2 versions of her presentation. The official version followed all Taven academic protocols, presenting human educational practices as interesting but inferior. The second version, hidden in her private datapad, explored her true findings about how Earth's environmental chaos had produced remarkable adaptability both in its species and its dominant intelligent life. On the morning of the conference, Lena sat in the university cafe, a cup of coffee before her. Today's choice was deliberate, not experimental. She needed the mental flexibility the beverage provided to navigate the complex situation she faced. Junho joined her, setting down his own cup. "Ready for your presentation?" "I have prepared thoroughly," Lena replied carefully. "Which version will you present?" he asked quietly. Lena's skin flickered with surprise patterns. "You know, I've watched you change over these weeks," Junho said. "No Taven would approve of how you think now." Lena stared into her coffee. "The Imperium values truth. But only certain kinds of truth," Junho finished. "So which will you choose?" Lena's skin displayed a new pattern, one that had no name in Taven emotional classification, something between determination and liberation. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "there is a third option yet to be discovered." She lifted the cup to her lips, made her choice, and drank. The Interstellar Academic Conference Hall buzzed with activity as scholars from 12 different worlds gathered to share research. Lena stood backstage, reviewing her presentation notes one final time. That morning, she had made a decision that felt both terrifying and inevitable. She would present her true findings, not the sanitized version the Imperium expected. To prepare herself, she had consumed a carefully measured cup of coffee 30 minutes before her scheduled presentation. The familiar clarity was spreading through her mind, dissolving the rigid thought patterns of Taven discipline. "Scholar Lena," a human assistant approached. "You're on in 5 minutes." Lena nodded, her skin displaying a complex mix of determination and anxiety patterns. As she waited, she noticed something unusual. The coffee's effect seemed stronger today. Her perceptions were shifting in a new way. Colors appeared more vivid, sounds more distinct. Most strangely, she could sense emotional patterns from the humans around her, something Tavens could normally only do with other Tavens. And now, the moderator's voice announced, "We welcome Scholar Lena from the Taven Imperium, presenting on evolutionary advantages of chaos, a cross-species perspective." Walking to the podium, Lena felt oddly disconnected from her body, as if observing herself from a slight distance. The audience before her, a mix of humans and representatives from other worlds, appeared surrounded by faint auras of emotional energy. "Respected colleagues," she began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "Taven scientific tradition values order, predictability, and controlled development. For generations, we have viewed these as universal principles of advanced civilization." She paused, feeling the weight of her next words. "I am here to suggest we may be wrong." A murmur passed through the audience. In the third row, Lena could see Supervisor Merrick, who had arrived unexpectedly that morning. His skin displayed the deep purple of outrage. "My research on Earth has revealed that chaos itself may be an essential catalyst for certain types of advancement. Earth's geological instability created pressure for rapid adaptation. Its climatic variations forced species to develop flexibility. Even its day-night cycle, more extreme than Teva's, shaped human cognition differently than ours." As she spoke, something extraordinary happened. The coffee's effect intensified, and suddenly Lena could perceive connections between concepts as visible strands of light. Ideas linked to one another in complex webs that she could manipulate mentally, rearranging them to form new patterns. Consider this data on problem-solving approaches, she continued, displaying comparative results from human and Taven students. When faced with standardized challenges, Tavens excel at solutions requiring systematic processing. Humans perform better when adaptive thinking is required. Lena could now see her own thoughts manifesting visually as she spoke. The sensation was overwhelming but oddly navigable. She realized she was experiencing something unprecedented. The coffee had activated latent Taven abilities that the Imperium's mental conditioning had suppressed for generations. Most significantly, I have identified a neurochemical basis for these differences. Taven educational practices deliberately inhibit certain neural pathways to promote disciplined thinking. Human education, particularly their use of mild stimulants like coffee, encourages these same pathways. She displayed brain scans on the projection screen, her own brain before and after coffee consumption. These scans reveal activity in regions that Taven neuroscience claims are vestigial, but they are not vestigial. They are suppressed. Our ancestors possessed these cognitive abilities before the educational reforms of the Fifth Era. Supervisor Merrock stood up. This presentation is unauthorized. Scholar Lena is experiencing medical distress and must be removed. But Lena continued, her voice growing stronger. The evidence suggests that Taven mental discipline, while valuable, has come at the cost of cognitive flexibility. By studying human approaches, we can recover these lost abilities without sacrificing our analytical strengths. University security officers looked uncertain, caught between Merrock's demands and the conference protocols against interrupting presentations. Professor Kim stood from his seat. Scholar Lena appears perfectly coherent. I suggest we allow her to finish. As Lena continued presenting her research, the visual manifestation of her thoughts grew more elaborate. She could see concepts forming and connecting in real time, allowing her to express ideas with unprecedented clarity. The audience seemed captivated, many taking rapid notes or recording her words. In conclusion, she said finally, this research suggests that both Taven and human cognitive approaches have evolutionary advantages. True advancement lies not in rigidly adhering to either system, but in learning to integrate them. The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. From the human attendees, the Taven delegation sat in stunned silence. Supervisor Merrock's skin displayed colors of fury and alarm that Lena had never seen on a Taven before. After answering questions from the audience, Lena left the stage feeling simultaneously exhausted and energized. The unusual perceptual effects were beginning to fade, though more slowly than after her previous coffee experiments. Jono found her in the hallway outside the conference room. That was incredible. The way you explained those connections, I've never heard anything like it. Something unexpected happened, Lena said quietly. The coffee affected me differently this time. I experienced enhanced perception beyond anything in my previous experiments. Before she could explain further, two Taven officials approached, flanking Supervisor Merrock. Scholar Lena, Merrock said coldly, you are ordered to return to Teva immediately. Your behavior indicates serious neural disruption requiring medical intervention. My neural function is enhanced, not disrupted, Lena replied calmly. The data supports this conclusion. You have violated Imperium protocols by consuming prohibited substances, one of the officials stated. Your judgment is compromised. Actually, Professor Kim interrupted. Approaching with several university administrators, Scholar Lena is here under the protection of the Interspecies Academic Exchange Treaty. Any medical concerns must be evaluated by a joint committee of Earth and Taven doctors before deportation can be considered. Merrock's skin flashed with frustration patterns. This is an internal Taven matter. Not according to the treaty your government signed, Professor Kim replied firmly. The confrontation ended in an uneasy stalemate. Lena would remain on Earth pending a medical evaluation, but was suspended from her official research duties. The Taven officials departed with promises to return with an extraction team if necessary. That evening, in Professor Kim's office, Lena underwent a comprehensive neural scan administered by both a human neurologist and a Taven medical technician who worked at the embassy. "These results are fascinating," Dr. Park, the neurologist, said as he examined the scans. "The coffee seems to have activated neural pathways that show signs of deliberate suppression, almost like removing a block rather than enhancing function." The Taven technician stared at the results with a troubled expression. These patterns match historical records from before the educational reforms. They should not be possible in modern Tavens. That evening, Lena met with the small council that had formed around her work: Professor Kim, Shunho, Subin, and 3 Taven exchange students who had defected after learning of her research. "The Imperium is tightening security," said Terrell, a Taven mathematics student. "All off-world communications are now monitored, and coffee has been classified as a Class 1 prohibited substance. Yet our network continues to grow," added Naima, another Taven student. Her skin displayed hopeful patterns. "The Medical Academy students have begun synthesizing coffee-like compounds that evade detection." Lena sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "The neurological evidence confirms what we suspected. The Imperium's control isn't just cultural or political, it's biological. They'd redesigned our species." "But why?" Chunho asked. "Why would any civilization deliberately limit its own cognitive abilities?" "Control," Professor Kim said simply. "Creative thinking leads to questioning. Questioning leads to change." Lena set down her cup. "We need to expand our research. If coffee can reverse generations of neural suppression in me, what might it do for others? And what other abilities might we recover?" 2 months later, Lena stood before a small group of 20 Tavens in a secure room beneath the university. All were exchange students or diplomatic staff who had secretly joined her growing movement. They called themselves the Awakened, a name that made Lena uncomfortable with its religious overtones, but which had taken hold nonetheless. "Today we begin a new phase," she told them. "Our research has produced a modified compound that produces neural awakening without the side effects that make detection easy. Each of you will be given samples to send through secure channels to our contacts on Teva." A young Taven diplomat raised her hand. "The Imperium has announced a complete halt to the exchange program. They claim Earth substances are causing neural damage." "They fear what is happening," Lena replied. "But they cannot stop it now. Too many have seen the evidence." Later that night, alone in her quarters, Lena experienced something unexpected. As she meditated, a human practice she had adopted, she suddenly felt a presence in her mind, a familiar pattern of thought, distinctive and clear. "Shunho." She opened her eyes in shock. He was nowhere near her quarters, yet she had sensed his thoughts as clearly as if he had spoken. Lena closed her eyes again, focusing on the sensation. Yes, definitely Juno. He was in the library, worried about an upcoming exam, thinking about equations and also, briefly, about her. The enhanced telepathic abilities the doctors had detected were manifesting. Lena felt a mix of wonder and fear. If coffee could restore this ability, what else might the Imperium have taken from her people? 1 year after her first cup of coffee, Lena stood on the stage of the Grand Hall at Seoul National University. The auditorium was filled with representatives from 12 worlds, including a growing faction of Tavens, who now openly challenged the Imperium's authority. "Today we announce the establishment of the Interspecies Cognitive Research Institute," Professor Kim declared, with Scholar Lena as its first director. Lena stepped forward, her skin displaying patterns of determination and hope that many younger Tavens had begun to imitate. "One simple earth beverage revealed a truth my people had forgotten," she said. "That diversity of thought is not a weakness, but a strength. That the orderly and the chaotic, the disciplined and the creative, are not opponents but partners in advancement." She looked out at the audience, sensing not just what she could see, but the complex web of thoughts and emotions that connected them all. The revolution we begin today is not just for Teva, but for all worlds that have forgotten that true wisdom comes not from control, but from freedom. Freedom to question, to explore, to connect. And yes, to enjoy a good cup of coffee while doing so. In the audience, Shunho smiled. And though no words were spoken, Lena heard his thought clearly. Not bad for an exchange student who just wanted to try the local drink. Lena's skin rippled with the blue-green pattern of joy as she sensed something new forming between the worlds, a connection as rich and complex as the beverage that had started it all.